Ostrich massacre sparks outrage. Mass outrage as 300 healthy ostriches executed by firing squad after bird flu ruling in Canada. A wave of public outrage has erupted after 300 ostriches at a family run farm in British Columbia, Canada, were executed by firing squad late Thursday night, following a federal order to cull the birds over avian influenza concerns. Just a day earlier, the holding pen at Universal Ostrich Farms had been filled with hundreds of healthy, long lived birds. By morning, it was a scene of devastation. Bodies covered under large traps, the air still heavy with gunfire echoes from the previous night. Now let's deep dive into this story on the AI podcast.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're opening up a really tough file, I think. It showcases one of those just brutal collisions you see sometimes in public policy.
Yeah, where, absolute necessity or perceived necessity crashes right into something potentially groundbreaking.
Exactly. We're diving into a recent, very high-stakes conflict out of British Columbia, Canada. It's about the controversial government-ordered cull of ostriches at Universal Ostrich Farms.
And we've got sources here, legal filings, scientific reports detailing how the detection of H5N1, the avian flu strain, led to this whole cascade.
Right, a Supreme Court standoff, the actual destruction of hundreds of birds, and maybe crucially, the wiping out of a unique biotech venture.
So our mission today really is to unpack that whole sequence.
And I think we have to start right at the end, with the moment that final decision was carried out. It was late one Thursday night. The farm had just lost its final legal appeal.
And federal officials arrived to carry out the depopulation order.
Yeah. The reports describe it as just grim, sudden. What was this, thriving research facility was just silenced within hours.
It's a stark reminder, isn't it, of the sheer power of these federal biosecurity mandates when they're enacted.
The scene itself, the details are quite visceral. A convoy, Canadian Food Inspection Agency, CFIA trucks arriving around 6 p.m.
And then the operation began inside the enclosures.
Yeah. Sources say around 300 ostriches were culled. These aren't just chickens. They're huge, majestic birds. And it wasn't just property loss. It felt like, the end of decades of work instantly.
It's hard to overstate the emotional impact.
Absolutely. You read the quotes from the Passatney family owners, and it's heartbreaking. Katie Passatney said, they killed all her babies. And she pointed out some of these birds were 35 years old. Think about that. And she said every single one had a name.
That personal connection really comes through.
Total sense of betrayal from their side. Their immediate reaction was, officials made a mistake. They said they brought war to our farm last night just to kill healthy animals.
But here's where it gets tricky, right? Because from the CFIA's perspective, this wasn't a mistake. It was protocol.
Exactly.
What's fascinating here, I think, is how that profound, very real, emotional story gets almost immediately swallowed by the cold logic of regulatory science.
Right.
The core conflict from the very start is this fundamental disagreement over value in a crisis. Is it generalized risk mitigation, meaning you destroy anything potentially exposed? Or is it preserving specific, maybe irreplaceable scientific potential, even if that potential isn't, fully proven yet?
Yeah.
The CFIA's action, the cull, was directly linked to that H5N1 outbreak. Their mandate for biosecurity means they have to act fast, decisively, to stop the spread.
But for the farmer who knows each animal, that fast, decisive action feels, indiscriminate.
Brutal.
Okay, but before we really get into the destruction of the science side, let's rewind just a bit. We need to understand the trigger, the disease itself, and the legal fight that came first.
Right. The context is crucial.
It all kicked off with detecting that H5N1 strain. Sources confirm 2 ostriches tested positive late last year, December 2024, during a localized outbreak.
And that initial infection wasn't contained quickly enough on the farm itself. It led to 69 bird deaths before the feds stepped in. That's what triggered the mandatory intervention.
Yeah.
And it's really important, I think, for listeners to understand why H5N1 specifically triggers such an extreme response. This isn't just a regular bird flu.
No.
H5N1 is terrifying. It kills poultry at incredibly high rates. But the bigger fear, the public health fear, is its zoonotic potential.
Meaning it can jump to humans.
Exactly. And the nightmare scenario is always that it mutates into a strain that spreads easily between humans. That's your global pandemic trigger right there.
So the CFIA operates under emergency rules here.
Pretty much. Emergency biosecurity measures. They essentially act as investigator, judge, and well, executioner in these cases.
Wow.
Property rights, individual animal health claims, they get superseded by the perceived threat to public safety and, let's be honest, to Canada's massive commercial poultry industry. Billions of dollars at stake.
So the decision to cull the whole flock, even the ones that seemed healthy, that's standard.
It's based on proximity risk. The assumption is if two birds had it, the entire flock is compromised, or the risk of it spreading is too high to tolerate. They can't test every single bird constantly.
And that proximity risk idea, that's exactly what the Passatnees fought against tooth and nail.
For months, yeah.
It wasn't a short argument. It went all the way up to the Supreme Court of Canada. They kept arguing the remaining birds were healthy, that the testing was flawed, or maybe just overkill.
But the courts ultimately sided with the agency's mandate.
Yeah, the legal fight just ended abruptly. The Supreme Court rejected their final appeal. And that was it. Hours later, the CFIA moved in. That ruling was the final green light.
And this really brings up a tough question for you, the listener, to think about. How much power does a private business, even an innovative one, or a farmer, really have when a federal agency declares a biosecurity emergency like this?
Seems like very little in the end.
The courts tell the CFIA. It reinforces that once H5N1 is confirmed on a premises, the policy, that indiscriminate destruction policy, tends to override everything else. Claims of health, unique value, it gets pushed aside. That legal defeat really highlights how non-negotiable these protocols are once triggered.
Okay, but here's where the story takes another, I think, even more complex turn. Because what was destroyed wasn't just a farm with some old birds. It was an active biotech research facility.
This is where it gets really interesting, yeah.
The financial loss, the scientific loss, it goes way beyond just the agricultural value of the ostriches.
Absolutely. The company there, Struthio Bioscience Inc., had made a major pivot since 2020.
Right, they shifted. They weren't primarily about meat anymore. They were all in on biotech research. The farm was basically a unique biological lab. And the aha moment, for me anyway, was realizing what they were working on, the potential that got erased.
Disease-fighting antibodies. Immunoglobulin Y, IgY.
Derived from ostrich egg yolks.
Exactly. Think of the ostrich egg basically as a natural self-contained antibody factory. When the mother ostrich encounters a pathogen, like a virus, her immune system cranks out antibodies.
Okay.
And instead of just keeping them in her blood, she efficiently deposits huge amounts of these antibodies into the yolk of her eggs.
Right.
It's nature's way of giving the chick passive immunity.
Right, protecting the baby bird.
Precisely. And ostrich IgY is especially interesting because, well, the scale is massive. Ostrich eggs are enormous, and they lay a lot of them. Plus, the IgY itself is often more stable, easier to purify than antibodies from mammals.
So Struthio Bioscience was taking this natural process and trying to turn it into treatment.
They were harnessing it, yeah, to create concentrated antibodies for potential therapies against diseases.
And the family claimed this wasn't just theory. They said they had actual results, documented promise.
That was their claim.
Katie Passatney stated it very clearly. We proved antibodies for COVID and H5N1 in the egg yolks.
Which is just... the tragic irony is almost unbelievable.
Right. They had apparently petitioned the Canadian government for funding to scale up this exact research that might have helped fight the very disease, H5N1, that ultimately led to their destruction.
Just before the final Cull order came down.
So, let's be clear. A facility possibly developing a novel defense against avian flu was destroyed because of avian flu.
That's the crux of it. And the loss. It's staggering. It's not just the money or the emotional toll, it's the potential erasure of unique genetic material.
What do you mean by that? Couldn't they just start over with new ostriches?
Well, maybe not. When the farm said they destroyed everything, that includes the specific genetic makeup of that particular flock, cultivated for decades. It's possible those birds had unique resistance traits, or maybe they produced IgY more efficiently, qualities that were key to the research.
So that specific biological software is gone?
Potentially, yes. The destruction of this venture isn't just a loss for the family. It's a potential setback for a whole, albeit niche, area of disease treatment research, viral metabolic diseases. It's a case where the broad biosecurity protocol clearly prioritized containing immediate risk.
Over preserving an asset designed to fight future risk.
Exactly. That's the conflict.
And this whole situation, this clash, it didn't just stay within Canada, did it? It attracted global attention. People internationally recognized what might be lost here.
Yeah, the standoff got quite a bit of press. High-profile opposition emerged.
Including U.S. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He actually wrote an open letter warning against what he called the indiscriminate destruction.
His main concern, as stated, was losing that unique genetic material. He felt it could be crucial for developing future treatments for avian flu resistance.
And he wasn't alone. Other big names got involved. Dr. Mehmet Oz, the TV personality and physician.
And billionaire John Catsimatidis. They actively campaigned to try and save the birds.
Dr. Oz even made a concrete offer, didn't he, to adopt the whole flock?
Yes, he proposed relocating all the surviving ostriches to his, I think it was a 900-acre ranch in Florida. A secluded place, a real rescue attempt.
But it didn't work.
No. And that offer, in a way, highlighted the difficulty. Canadian officials denied it pretty quickly. They cited containment risks.
The logistics must have been daunting.
Imagine trying to safely transport hundreds of potentially infected very large birds across an international border, guaranteeing zero transmission risk along the way. It was deemed impossible from a biosecurity standpoint.
So while you have these international pleas, the official Canadian stance remained firm.
Absolutely. To be balanced, we have to present their side. The CFIA defended the operation rigorously. Their statements consistently said the action was necessary, essential even.
To contain the spread of avian influenza and protect Canada's poultry industry.
Right. They stressed they were following standard procedures, depopulation and disposal measures, in line with established international biosecurity protocols. They argued it was the only viable option to prevent a potentially much wider agricultural disaster.
Which leaves us with this really stark division in how people see it.
Completely polarized. On one side, you have supporters calling it a crime against nature, focusing on the emotional loss, the specific animals, the destroyed science.
And on the other,
the view that the CFIA had no choice. That, given the nature of H5N1 and the potential consequences of it spreading, the containment imperative trumped everything else. It's a textbook clash, really compassion and potential science versus viral risk management.
So wrapping this up, what does it all mean for us looking at this case? It seems like in just a few hours, driven by this absolute need to stop a virus from spreading.
Decades of work just vanished.
Yeah, specific scientific dedication, unique biological assets, named animals with histories, all gone. Universal Ostrich Farms forces us to ask that fundamental question about scale, doesn't it? Was the generalized risk, the proximity risk, worth the guaranteed destruction of something that was actively trying to solve the very problem it fell victim to?
I think the key takeaway here is exactly that sharp legal and ethical challenge this case throws into relief. It starkly shows the intense, almost brutal pressure when government policy demands immediate preventative culling based on that generalized risk.
And how that mandate just steamrolls everything else.
It overrides the preservation of unique, potentially vital scientific assets, like the IGY research, like the specific genetic potential of that flock. It forces us to confront the hierarchy of values in a crisis.
So a final thought for our listeners to maybe wrestle with.
Well, the case really stands as a potent reminder, I think.
Yeah.
Biosecurity protocols often work on this zero-sum logic. Collective safety trumps individual or specialized interests. Necessary, perhaps, in many cases. But what happens if we keep destroying the potential sources of unique, maybe unconventional biotechnology breakthroughs, especially when those breakthroughs are designed to solve the very diseases triggering the protocols? Are we, in effect, ensuring our future defenses will always be playing catch-up, always one step behind the next pandemic?
That's the complex policy gap this leaves wide open, something to definitely mull over.
Okay, one question for you. Should emotional value and the bond between farmers and animals be considered before enforcing disease control measures? Don't forget to comment it. Thanks.